It's rock and roll. Like that's cyclocross. It's like, come on. You know what I'm missing, Matthew, is like I can't play electric guitar, and that is a problem. Like that's what I'm missing. I should be like an electric guitar player.
You know what? I think air guitar is better. It's easier to pack on a plane. It's easier to pull out at a cyclocross race. The air guitar is all you need. Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Pioro, and joining me for this episode is feature writer Jake Williams. Welcome, Jake.
Hey, thanks for having me back. You know, summer is changing into fall, and I think we're all excited for what is coming here.
That was the most restrained cross is coming I've ever heard from you. And listeners will know that the rule here at Canadian Cycling Magazine is you cannot say cross is coming until after August 1st. Jake is respecting the rules. And on the note of cyclocross is coming, this episode's feature interview is with cyclocross superstar Maghalie Rochette. She has a new book. She's also at the start of her CX Fever tour. That's a mix of book tour and racing in North America. In my chat with her, we get an update on Rochette's racing as she comes out of a rough period in her career. The good news is that she has renewed energy and optimism for CX competition. We talk about the differences between North American and European cyclocross scenes. We talk about overcoming injury, up-and-coming Canadian cyclocross racers, and even air guitar. That's coming up. But first, Jake, we're in the midst of the Mountain Bike World Championships. You and I are speaking and recording not long after Jackson Goldstone's win in the elite men's downhill competition. It was a crazy ride.
Unreal. And I mean, that course, historic course, runs incredibly fast. When I think of Champery, I think of incredibly fast course. And in the dry, I mean, this weekend, riders were absolutely punishing it. But back to Mr. Goldstone, because clearly winning by almost 2 seconds in a course that steep, that fast was just amazing to watch. What did you think?
It was terrifying to watch, I thought. Not long before Goldstone's run, there was Andreas Kolb, and he bailed on this section where there was a high line, which was grassy, and a lower dirt line, which sort of looked like it would keep you in the pocket a bit more. And then Goldstone took that high line, and it looked nuts. Like, I don't know how he pulled it off. I think even in his post-race interview, he said it was a pretty wild ride. But I don't know how to describe it, his sort of body literacy, bike body literacy connection, trail reading is just phenomenal.
Yeah, in his post-race interview, he did, drop the old flow state term, which I think is an apt kind of description of what these riders have to do.
It's true, and he did say he was on the limit, and he also said for a comeback year, this isn't too bad. That is referencing the knee injury that he sustained early in 2024 that wiped out his 2024 season effectively. This year, 4 World Cup victories, and then the World Championship. It's not a bad comeback at all. Other notable performances on the world stage, we have Ellie Hoskin, a 21-year-old Squamish rider who won the UCI Enduro World Championships. This is her first year as an elite. She had 2 World Cup wins before this. One was in Bielsko-Biała in Poland, and the other was in the Haute-Savoie region of France. She's had a fantastic year. Totally awesome. Look for an interview with her in the upcoming issue of Canadian Cycling Magazine. And I should also note Elliot Jameson took a bronze medal in the elite men's enduro. And this just in. Following the recording of this introduction, Isabella Holmgren got yet another World Championship jersey for her collection. She won the Under-23 cross-country short track competition in Switzerland. This is her 4th rainbow jersey in mountain biking. In 2024, she won the world title for both the Under-23 short track and cross-country Olympic races. The year before that, Holmgren took the Junior Cross-Country Olympic World Championship race. There are, of course, many other notable wins for Holmgren, and no doubt more are coming. Also, Jen Jackson was third in the elite women's short track, while Cole Punchard took bronze in the under-23 men's race. Phew. Moving on from mountain biking, we've got the Grand Prix Cycliste de Québec et de Montréal coming up. This episode is coming out right before those races begin. I'm stoked. Are you stoked?
I'm incredibly stoked. I can't wait to go. It'll be my second time attending in person in Montreal, and I believe you'll be in Quebec as well, where I believe Mr. Pogačar is trying to win there for the first time. He's won in Montreal twice, but he's never won there. Is that correct?
That is correct. Last year, his efforts to win in Quebec were stymied. Michael Matthews, who seems to have mastered that course, won in a fantastic fashion. Yeah, so Tadej Pogačar is back for both the Canadian races. What's interesting about the Quebec race is there are changes to the circuit. So let's call it the northwest or top right section, which is nice and twisty and lumpy, and it goes through the old town. That has been largely cut out. Riders still go up Côte de la Montagne, where there's that beautiful view over the Prescott Gate. It's a section I really like. I tend to gravitate towards that section because it's easy to get a lot of vantage points. It's in, like I said, the beautiful old town, but that's out. And there seems to be more emphasis on the Plains of Abraham, and they've added a section in, let's call it the top left of the circuit, or technically I think that's southwest. And there's a rectangle that's been added through a more residential area. At first, I was like, you guys took out my favorite part. What's going on here? That's been a section in the final run-in. There's often many failed attempts to get away. It's great for drama. It's, like I said, it's got twists and turns. So I was a bit kind of bummed about that. But looking at the new section, because it's residential, I think it could be. I think it could enhance the atmosphere possibly, because I was thinking back to the old Philly one-day race. Up the Maniac Hill there, it's just a party. People just come out because they've got a bike race in their neighborhood. I'm hoping that same thing happens in Quebec City in that new section. So could be good vibes over there. I'm just going to have to figure out how to position myself throughout this race, because you can't, maybe you can speak to Montreal. You've walked the whole course in one race, but that takes a long time, even though it's only about 12 kilometers.
Exactly. And I mean, that really allows you to see all elements of the course. But I will say, after checking my steps the day, I think it was about 50,000. So I think we walked about, between 20 and 30 kilometers. So it was a literal hike. But you're right. It is fantastic to be able to stay tight. There's fans sprinkled around the course with obviously the large touch points. Chameleon Oud, of course, being where Pogačar launched last year. And it's just a great time. And with Wout coming this year, coming back, the two of them battled it out. And, losing in a sprint 2 years ago to Pogačar, hopefully he's looking for some revenge.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Montreal plays out, especially with Wout van Aert there. Going back to Quebec, though, and the changes to that course, it is a bit longer, about 15 kilometers longer, but there's about 300 meters less elevation throughout the whole race. My thinking there is Quebec is traditionally, let's call it the sprintier one. It's not a full sprinters race by any means, but it does tend to favor the faster finishers like Peter Sagan, who, although he's won in both, and say Michael Matthews, who's also won at both, but more times in Quebec, and even Simon Guerin. So maybe an even more sprintier guy will come good in Quebec. It may really sort out the more climbier folks, possibly.
To piggyback onto that, sorry, I know, Biniam in his race interview last year after Quebec mentioned that, in the sprint, he had nothing left. He was pretty cooked after the efforts around that circuit. So, hey, wouldn't that be fun?
Exactly. Yes. And he is on the start list. The start lists are pretty fluid, as both of you and I have seen at the moment. We have race organizers saying certain people are coming, and then we have other sources that are maybe not as sure about which riders are going to be there. So that is an evolving list. Michael Woods, although, has said he's going to finish up his career in Montreal. That'll be kind of exciting. It'll be a good way to close out the career. I am a little surprised still about his retirement announcement, because previously he'd been talking about Montreal 2026 and finishing up at the World Championships in that city next year. But it seemed now was the time to retire for that rider. So that'll be a storyline in Quebec and Montreal.
Well, Mark Cavendish retired and then unretired. So, there is a precedence for that.
Good point. Retirement isn't always so final. That's a very good point. Running through the list of possible attendees or possible people not attending, Carson Matern was picked to be on the national team. Unfortunately, he had a crash at the Tour de l'Avenir and does not look like he will be racing at all in Canada at the Grand Prix. And to the best of my knowledge, Matthias Guillemette of Tudor Pro Cycling Development Team, that rider from Trois-Rivières, is not going to be attending. I'm kind of bummed about that, because at first he seemed he was possibly going to make it. Other Canadians, pretty sure both Guillaume Boivin and Hugo Hull will be there. We don't really know about Michael Leonard, do we?
It does seem, again, back to your the fluidity of the start list. He's appearing in some lists, he's not appearing in other lists. So yeah, we're not quite sure. Maybe I should just reach out to him.
Really, we should just reach out to him.
Yeah, he's pretty easy to talk to.
For sure, as you know, as in your feature with Michael Leonard, which is for newsletter subscribers. You've already seen it. We released that story early to newsletter subscribers. It is coming out very soon in the magazine and on the member section of the website. Look for Jake's story, his feature profile of Michael Leonard. So as you mentioned, Jake, I will be in Quebec and Montreal. I will see you in Montreal. You will be helping us out there with the coverage. I'm very excited to have you on board. It's going to be great.
I can't wait. Yeah, we're going to be running around, shooting, getting audio, getting photos, getting video. It's going to be beautiful chaos.
It always is. I'm looking forward to that. Now, Jake, I want to turn to the feature interview with Maghalie Rochette. She has a new book. It's called Fever, Stories and Learnings from a Career in Cyclocross. It is a great read. I read it. I got an advanced look at it. And I say this in the interview, it made me want to race cross again. If cyclocross has ever had an ambassador, I think Maghalie Rochette is the sport's one of its greatest ambassadors.
There's been a lot of talk about it being dead, and I have to say, Maghalie is the one person who is firmly keeping things alive here.
Exactly. And that idea of cyclocross is dead, you and I, we hear that, we maybe even debate it, we kind of worry about it when people take that idea too seriously. Maghalie doesn't seem too troubled. So it's really great to hear her take on what she's seeing in terms of racing and like the rider side from the organizer side, because she is in touch with many organizers. And also we get her perspective as someone who's, let's say, bilingual in the North American cyclocross scene and the European cyclocross scene. She's very connected to both, and her stories from both ends of both sides of the Atlantic are great to hear because she's a great storyteller. You know that from her newsletter, and it all comes together in a great package in her book.
And without spoiling too much, she does give us some insight into just how the Dutch are.
I mean, it's sort of an anthropological look as an outsider-insider into that culture of cyclocross and from northern continental Europe.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. She's very funny. It's always great to chat with her. And without further ado, let's listen to this feature conversation with Maghalie Rochette. Maghalie Rochette, welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. Actually, welcome back. It's been years, but welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here, actually. It has been some years. I think I think I remember the last time, and it was during the COVID year.
Exactly.
I think it was 2020. I was in Europe, and we were staying in the camper van because everything was closing down, and it was a bit stressful. But I actually remember talking to you in that moment, Matthew. So yeah, it's been a while. Things have changed since then.
It's changed. I'm still podcasting from my closet because this is the best sound. But other than that, yes, a lot has changed since then. And the new thing is you have a new book. It came out September 5th. It's called Fever, Stories and Learnings from a Career in Cyclocross. I read it. It's great. But before we really get into the book, I want to get a picture of where you're at with racing and recovery. I'll let listeners know we're speaking in mid-August. And let's first discuss your hand, your right hand. Remind us how you injured it and tell us how it's doing now.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. So yeah, I'm doing great right now. So my hand, actually, I was racing BC bike race this summer and I broke my hand, but it turns out I also broke my left elbow. So left elbow and right hand. And not ideal. This is actually the reason why I cut my hair so short. So they were much longer, but with my broken elbow, I couldn't bring my arm to my hair. And with the right hand broken, I couldn't tie anything. And it became such a mess that I was like, you know what? I'm going to just chop it off. And it is the only solution. So this happened. That was early July. I just had a crash at BC bike race, and honestly, a silly crash, nothing major. You know, BC bike race is not dangerous. It's not the type of riding that is super hard or anything, but I think in the midst of racing, I made a mistake and I crashed, and that happened. That said, I'm good now. That's been 6 weeks. I just took off the cast. I am riding now on my cyclocross bike, no problem. Gravel bike, no problem. So yeah, I mean, it's going super well. I think health-wise, maybe some listeners that watch cyclocross may have noticed that last year I also did not finish the season. It turns out that in December I caught, it's not even clear what it was. One of my doctors thought it was mononucleosis, and the other one was like, it might be just post-viral fatigue. And so we don't know what it was, but I kind of kept getting sick, and at some point I just got to a point where I had no energy. I couldn't recover. So that's why I stopped the season. So I took a big break then in the winter. So for January, February, and March, I didn't even touch a bike, which was very weird to me. But I think it did some good. And I built back up very, very, very gradually during the spring and throughout the summer. And I think I'm reaching, finally finding a little bit of fitness again. So I'm excited about that. I'm healthy and happy, and I think getting fit. So I can't complain. It's a good spot to be in.
Amazing. I want to go back to some of those milestones you mentioned, but I kind of want to return to the hand and the elbow because I'm curious, and this question comes from a personal spot, and I'll explain in a minute, but I'm curious about when you're injured with a broken bone, how do you keep from getting into an injury funk, let's say? And I ask because I broke my left thumb in July. It was a cycling crash, and I wasn't doing anything as cool as BC bike race, but I haven't been racing outside. So for a few weeks even, I was pretty demotivated, and I didn't want to bother with the trainer even. And logically, I know things will simply take time. There's steps I can do. But other times I feel like a 3-year-old. I'm just saying, if I can't ride my bike outside in the summer, then I don't want to ride at all. So one distinction is you make your living riding bikes. I'm a master's amateur rider, but many of the podcasters listeners are the same way. So we can all share in a frustration when we can't ride. So how do you manage that part?
It's a good question. And I think it's actually not that simple of an answer because what you were feeling is actually super valid. And I think that if you don't listen to that, so if like you got injured, you really don't feel like riding inside and then you push yourself to do it, that costs a lot of energy and a lot of willpower. And I think like that's the side of injuries that we don't think about sometimes, and because then like training in that period where you are injured becomes, 5 times harder. And then by the time you come back, you would think like, oh, well, I'm finally back and I can, by the time you're finally healthy, you're like, okay, I'm finally healthy. I can start training again. It's like, well, you're drained. Like your motivation is drained and you're mentally drained. And maybe when it counts, you don't have what it takes to actually get on the horse and like fully go on. And so I think what you lived is super valid and you have to listen to it. I think in my case this time, I was actually super motivated. And I think part of it was I had struggled earlier in the season, but at that point at BC Bike Race, I think I was finally starting to hit my stride. And so when that happened, I was like, oh, well, actually, I kind of want to keep improving. And so it kind of felt the motivation came naturally. And I did want to go on the trainer. I did want to do all these things. That said, my coach, David, still forced me to take some days off because he knew, like, we know that thing I just talked about like forcing the motivation, you know that it's going to bite you back in the butt later on. And so you have to, he was like, you know what? I know you're fired up, you're motivated, but we're going to take like 3 to 4 days off. Like you do whatever you want and then we're going to start. And I think that was like prevention because at some point, like maybe you don't feel the blues of the injury right away, but it's going to catch back to you at some point. And you want to have the motivation and the energy and the mental energy and the willingness to actually push when it counts. So I don't know if that answers the question.
That totally answers the question. And I feel like I just got a bonus bit of advice that wasn't in your book maybe. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. I guess it's not my first injury, but I mean, again, like I do think what you feel is super valid. And honestly, like, you know how we take the off season at some point in the season, like sometimes like life throws a curveball and maybe your off season was then, you know, and maybe if you like have this injury and you're like, you know what, I don't feel like riding. I'm just going to chill. You do all the fun stuff. And then eventually like you love riding, you love training. So it's going to come back. But I think it's allowing ourselves to kind of feel what we feel sometimes. And yeah, of course it's different for me if it's my job, but honestly, like we're all human and those feelings are real, so we have to listen to them at some point, I think. Okay,
well, I want to explore some of the big mix of feelings that have been swirling around. And again, I think they tie into this book. Now, you mentioned your last season ended early. It ended in December. And that figures in the book, actually. And is that when you started writing this book? Were you, when the season came to a close early, did you put pen to paper, or tell me the relationship between those two moments?
I would say not right away. You know, the book is an idea I've had for a really long time. And there is a folder in my computer. So I don't know if I believe you are a subscriber of the newsletter.
Yes,
I think
I am.
so. But I have a newsletter that I send out after each race. And there are some newsletter that I never sent out. And I just like kept the stories in a folder because I was like, in the moment I felt like I wanted to write this story, but I didn't know how to share it. I didn't know if it was shareable. So I would like always keep those in a folder. And in the back of my mind, I had the idea of creating a book about cyclocross, not necessarily about my full story, but about cyclocross and stories that have been lived through cyclocross. So that's a story, project idea I've had in the back of my mind. And then when this happened in December, actually, I did nothing for a while. Like I really did take a break. But as I started regaining health and energy, it's like I got excited again about racing, about cyclocross. And I mentioned that I started really gradually training, and it was very gradual. So I had more time on my plate than normal. And so I just started writing because I was like, you know what? Like, I've been wanting to do this project for a long time. And if I don't actually do it, it will just remain an idea. And I didn't want to have that regret at some point, like waking up at 50 and say like, oh, I used to do this thing called cyclocross. I have decided I never done it, you know? So I didn't want to be that. So that's kind of how I started. I just started not exactly sure what I wanted to create, but as I was doing it more and more, it became something. And yeah, that's kind of how it happened. So I would say I started maybe in end of February or early March. And yeah, it went quick from there.
So as you mentioned, you have your newsletter. So I already knew you were good storyteller, but that really comes through in this book. And what impressed me was it's a mix of stories, like you have so many good anecdotes and you know how to use them, but then there's also a mix of advice from gear, tactics, and technique. I have to admit, the next time I line up for a cross race, I'm going to reread that part about race starts, especially about using your various senses to get off the line quickly. That's gold.
It's awesome.
Did this style of writing come naturally to you?
I don't know. Well, I gotta say, I got help, so I first wrote it down all on my own, but well, that's a new thing, actually. I didn't know that writing a book was such a team effort. I didn't know that. So I just started, I wrote it all. And yes, I mean, the story definitely come from me. And the reason there's a mix of like story and advice is I wanted to create, my original idea was a cyclocross guide, like a guidebook. But then I thought, a guidebook is kind of boring to read from cover to cover, for me anyway. So I thought, okay, how can I make it a little bit more engaging? And so that's how the stories came about. And the stories in that little folder in my computer, I kind of dug through that again. And I thought if there's like a little bit of a mix of both, it's maybe a little bit more engaging. And perhaps it's not just for people who love cyclocross, but maybe anybody who races can get something out of that. Or anybody who is a fan of cycling can find something for them out of this book. And so that's why I did it in that way. Now, if it came naturally, well, I talked about the team part. I wrote it in one way, and then I actually work with Maghalie Rochette. She works with, she's an editor, and I knew her. And I asked her if she wanted to help me with editing of this book. And the reason I chose her, or not chose, but asked her if she wanted to be part of it, is her background is she used to be a racer. She's Dutch, but she lives in North America. And so she knows both the European cyclocross culture and the North American cyclocross culture very well. And she's a good writer. And I just thought like, oh, she's the first person that came to mind. And I gotta say, she made the stories much better. Like, at least, like the mistakes and some sentences structure, like they are things that she was sometimes sending my way, in the Google Docs. And I was like laughing. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote that. It was, so, she made it better. But yeah, I don't know. I always loved writing. And for me, it's been always cathartic for me to write things, and it's a way to make sense of things in my head. And so I've really, really enjoyed that process. Like I was looking forward every day to the time that I would sit down and write. So I really enjoyed that.
Nice. And also you mentioned the newsletter again, but you also write in a journal frequently. So this is definitely a muscle or a discipline you've practiced before you sat down to write the book.
I think so. Yeah. It's not like the actual writing of the book happened pretty quickly, like within a few months, but it's been something that first has been in my mind for a long time, that I've been thinking about for a long time. But also, as you said, like I've been writing for a long time, and I have I probably have like hundreds of newsletters that I wrote, and I dug back into that to get some information about certain stories that I wanted to tell. I have like just here I have 2 journals in which I write frequently in, and I have like a pile of others from previous years. And so, as you said, it's something that I've been practicing, and honestly, I would love to get better at it. Like writing this book made me realize like, oh my God, like it's so fun to do. It's so fun to express yourself in that way. And I want to get better. So I was like, maybe I can take a class, or, I really enjoyed it.
Oh, come on. You can't be good at writing and cyclocross. Come on. You leave something for us writers to just do here.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think that exactly is it. Like, I realized working with Anne-Marie how good she was. Yeah. And like, sometimes I read your stuff and how good it is. And I'm like, oh my God, like, it's cool to think I could get so much better if I learn a few tips from people, or if I take a class or whatever. So it's cool to build that toolbox. And that's like, I'm excited about that.
Getting back to the book, actually, I want to read a passage from it that is near the end. Quote, "For 3 years, I'd been fighting the same battle of trying to stay afloat through injury, burnout, loss of sponsors, and the creeping fear that maybe my time in cyclocross was coming to an end." End quote. What struck me there, but I kind of had a sense of it, I guess, is that what happened last December was brewing for 3 years. Now, that's a long time to have this sort of simmering. I don't know, maybe you can unpack this a bit more, because you struggle quite openly in the book with your ups and downs and the emotional roller coaster, to use a tired phrase, of what you were going through. How was coming to the point where you felt ready to share all of that so candidly in the book?
Good question. Am I ready to share it? I don't even know.
It's coming out, or it's out.
It's coming out. Yeah. I think it's because I'm okay with that. I think like everybody goes through struggles, and I've been through mine. And I think if we can share openly, maybe it helps someone else. I've read a lot of sports biography or, other athletes, and reading their stories, a lot of times it's helped me so much through my own journey. And so if sharing what I've been through can help someone else, awesome. And honestly, like writing it down helped me go through it too and understand it better and feel comfortable with that. So I think that's why. And I don't know, I feel like I've always tried to be pretty honest. I would say the last 2-3 years, it has been harder. Not that I wasn't honest, but I think I wasn't open as much. And part of it was because I was struggling and I didn't even know how or why. And I think getting mono or whatever, honestly, that illness was that I got in December, like that was truly rock bottom for me. And it was finally something powerful enough that my body found to stop me. And I had to listen. And listening to that has been really beneficial for me. I think maybe that's why I felt comfortable sharing it, is because now I feel like it's not gone. Like it's still there. It's part of me now. It's part of my story. And I think back to it quite a bit, but I do feel good now, and I do feel healthy, and I do feel excited and happy. And I think that's why I felt comfortable sharing it now.
Yeah. I guess the story was still being written. And so you had to wait for that next step to be able to get it down into the book.
Yeah. And who knows what's next? Like, I think it's still being written, I don't even know how it's going to be going this season, but I do think I've gotten some clarity around all of it and some peace with all of it too. I just, who knows what's coming, but I think now I'm more curious and less judgmental. So I think it's a good spot to be at. And that's why I was okay sharing it.
I want to actually maybe ask you a bit more about what's coming up. I saw on your Instagram, you were hopping some barriers, catching a Rice Krispie square as you were pedaling along. This is coming out not too far away from Rochester cyclocross. That's a race you've won a bunch of times. So what are your plans? Can you discuss your plans? What's the season looking like?
Oh, yeah. You know what? Big plans. CX Fever Tour. That's what we're calling it. The goal of the CX Fever Tour. So what is it? What is it and what is the goal? We want to share the excitement of cyclocross. And we keep hearing that cyclocross is dead, and I will agree, it's not what it has been, but I do not agree that it's dead. If you go to events these days, like there's actually a lot of people that are still passionate about cyclocross at these events. And a lot of race promoters are telling me, actually, we're having our biggest numbers, and year over year, it keeps growing. And if you look at the amount of events and, all the small communities in North America, like I did a clinic in Toronto last year on a Wednesday night. It was dark the whole time. There were 200 people riding their bikes in a park on a random Wednesday night in the fall. And these little pockets exist in so many places in North America. It's like, I don't agree that it's fully dead. There's a lot of people that are still really passionate about that. And so our goal with the CX Fever Tour was, you know what? We're just going to go see these people and share the stoke of cyclocross with them. Like, these people have the fever, we have the fever, let's go. And so what we're doing, I mean, it's nothing really special, but basically David and I, we created a calendar. So it includes all the USCX races. And then there's Really Rad Cyclocross, Northampton Cyclocross, Nationals, Pan Am. So it's 8 weekends of racing. And at each event, we're doing a special activation. So it's just a way to connect with the people. So at some races, it's a pre-ride that I'm leading and David is doing quick fixes on the side of the course for people that might have troubles with their bikes. Some places we're going to do live podcast recording. At some point, we're doing like a junior woman clinic and pasta dinner for everybody. I'm still trying to fit in. I want to do a doggy cross at one of the races, so I'm still working on that one. But anything that brings a stoke to cyclocross, and some of them is just like hangout time so we can actually chat. There's also between the races, we're going to go visit all the major clubs to do cyclocross clinics or just join their training and just hang out with those people. So we're going to Toronto, we're going to New York, to Baltimore, we're going to go to Chicago, Cincinnati, like a lot of places where we know there's big pockets of cyclocross loving people. And we're joining them in their own space and doing clinics and hanging out. And through that, we'll have a ton of merch. So I made there's some cool merch coming, like awesome merch.
The pimento socks?
You know what? Not socks, but the pimento is back. We're bringing it back. So pimento is back. There's I asked other artists from the cyclocross community to create designs too. And I told them basically the brief was simple. What is CX Fever to you? And that's it. And because it's different for everybody. And I thought if we ask different people, it's going to come out differently. And some might connect with somebody's visions a little bit more. And so ton of merch coming. And then there's the book that will also be part of the tour. It's a way to also, bring the book to people. But above all, it's really about connecting with people and being excited about cyclocross.
Will you race yourself?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
okay.
That's main goal. I know it will be busy, but I'm ready.
I was just going to say, you've got all this other stuff going on.
Yeah, I know.
You get a pre-ride.
Yeah, well, I'll figure it out, but I know I'll be fine. I'm definitely racing and I'm excited about that.
Nice.
So I'm preparing well now and I'm really excited about some good racing. So yeah, that's definitely the priority, but I don't know. I think those weekends of racing, it's so cool. Everybody's at the same place for 3 days. And so it makes the connection piece easy, but you have to make time for it. And that's why we created these special activations, because that way we have meaningful time with people and it's not just 2 minutes before the start, hey, I hope your race will blah, blah, blah. It's actual time to chat. And so I think we'll manage to do all of it well, but we'll see.
That's busy, but it sounds very cool, I got to admit. I was going to press you a bit on the cyclocross is dead stuff. You mentioned it in your book in a section called Cyclocross is Dead, Long Live Cyclocross. And I think that is definitely, you've heard the grieving, you've heard the worries from cyclocross fans everywhere. And sure, I was going to lead into that actually by saying, is it hard to get a cyclocross bike these days?
Is it hard? Yes. Oh man, I couldn't find a sponsor. First of all, couldn't find a sponsor. So that shows that the industry has very little interest in cyclocross. That is the first thing. Second thing, a lot of cyclocross bikes are becoming gravel bikes. So pure cyclocross geometries are becoming hard to find. And then third thing, the UCI has new rules for the elite racers. And those rules are that your bike has to be accredited by the UCI if you want to race World Cups. And so that really diminishes the amount of bikes that are available for us racers to race on the World Cups. So yes, it is getting difficult. On the other hand, I will say a gravel bike is fine. You can race cyclocross with a gravel bike. And so, sometimes we look at it through elite racer mindset, whereas, you need the accreditation or whatever. But if you look at the mass, actually, in my opinion, everybody has a cyclocross bike in the garage right now. Everybody has a gravel bike. Okay, maybe the bottom bracket is a little bit lower, but no big deal, no big deal. So I kind of see it in a way that everybody has the bike now. Like, just go try it. If you enjoyed super long races, that's awesome. But also, if you're like, you've done that for a little bit, now you have the bike and you're like being crunched on time because your job is asking a lot and you maybe don't have the time to train for super long races, go race cyclocross. It's 45 minutes of awesomeness and you have the bike for it. Like, no need to invest more. It works. So that's kind of the thing. I don't know if you agree.
The last few cyclocross races I've done on a gravel bike. So I agree with you. The bike works just fine. Yes,
works
like you
perfect.
said, maybe the bottom bracket is a smidge low. Maybe I was catching a few corners with my pedals, but like really that's the least of, as a masters rider, that's the least of my problems. I cannot complain about that.
And you know what? I'll say, like, if someone, you come with your gravel bike and maybe you can't pedal as much when it's like a super off-camber section, like use this to your advantage. Like use that section to rest a little bit more and like attack after. Like, there's good points on either side. And I don't know, like, I mean, even when I was racing with Specialized, at some point in those years, the Crux became actually a gravel bike. But I mean, I got on the podium of World Cups with that bike. Like, that bike was sick. It was awesome. It's totally fine for racing cyclocross. And there's a lot of gravel bikes that are very similar in that way that can totally do cyclocross super well. So, yeah, I think we always have a choice of how we look at things. We could look at things and say, like, oh my God, there's no more cyclocross bikes. What are we going to do? Like, big drama. But at the same time, we could look at it and say like, wow, everybody's got a cross bike now. Like, let's go. It's time to put energy into that and just like, come on, like come try ride in circles with us and it's going to be sick.
I love it. Are there any other rays of hope in the cyclocross scene that you see?
Yeah, I think the Olympics, maybe.
Good point. Yeah.
We don't know. For now, it's rumors, but strong rumors. And I think that if it happens, if cyclocross ends up going to the 2030 Olympics, I think that could be huge because I think that would create the structure at a grassroots level going up. So like if it's an Olympic sport, the federation get more into it. So if like at the regional level, you have a structure and then at the provincial level, same thing. And then there's a bigger structure nationally. So suddenly there's a path, that people can follow. But not only there's a path, there's more events that have to happen. And if more kids go to events, well, the parents are going to also go. And so I think like that can create a wheel of positive momentum that could, bring excitement into cyclocross.
One of the things that comes up in your book is the contrast, and it comes through naturally, the contrast between European and North American scenes. You're very meshed, of course, in the North American scene, and you've done extensive racing in Europe. Is there anything that illustrates the differences between those in your mind? Like one sort of concrete thing?
In what sense? Do you mean in the health of cyclocross still? Because I do think it's still very healthy in Europe. When we go to, well, maybe that will answer the question actually. It's more fan-based over there. It's a lot more fan-based. So it's the sport doesn't rely on participation like we do here. Cyclocross racers over there are performers and the races are events that people attend and watch. And so that is the main difference. And I think it shows in the health and in the type of sponsorship that we get here and that they get there. There's a lot of out of industry 100% out of industry sponsorship in Europe, and over here it's all brands that are related to cycling in some way that get into cyclocross. So I think that's kind of the major difference. And so over there in Europe, they're not dependent on how the cycling industry is doing. Over there, it's working. I mean, and the best example is when it was COVID, cyclocross was essential. No races were canceled. It was like, we need that because it's on TV. But over here, like, no one cares. It's not the NFL. And so I think that's a major difference. And maybe that big difference kind of creates all the other differences as well. Then there's like the cultural difference. Like, there's so many differences, but I don't know. Does that answer the question?
It does. And I think, yeah, it's definitely more participant based here. But also there's other just little things that I noticed in your book, like your little pizza events that sort of grew up organically in the North American scene, where you guys had a pizza oven at your camper van. And it actually, there's a great story in there about how one night that became quite the event. But I can't imagine that happening in Europe. Could you?
No, it could not. And actually, so we ended up taking that story out of the book because we were crunched with pages.
Oh, no way.
But people, I will still share it. I'll still share it on online so people can read it, because I do think it illustrates North American cyclocross so well. But no, I don't think I could see it happen in Europe. And part of it is the structure of our races. So, I was talking earlier about when we show up to a cyclocross event at a park, everybody is there for 3 days. We're there from Friday, we race, like for the pre-ride, we race on Saturday, we race on Sunday. And so a lot of people actually camp there or sleep there. But even if they don't, like, we're all there for 3 days, and we kind of set up our whole area, and like we hang out, and there's open tents and stuff. But in Europe, the races, like, basically you show up in your RV or your car, you race, and you go back home. Like, there's no way of staying there because the race is not at the same place in the next day. That it's moving around. And so it doesn't create the environment for people to hang out together. So I think that is the main reason why it doesn't happen, because people it's different. Like, it's also different culture. Like, maybe they're not as friendly from the start together, but, if you spend enough time there, like, people are friendly, they're nice, and they will take you in. And after World Championships, like, we've had parties with all the Europeans racers as well, and it's super fun. I just think the way that the races are happening and the events are happening doesn't create opportunities for such proximity and for such connection with, like, between the racers.
You also, and I hope it's still in the book, you had a great story, or just you painted a really great picture of how crazy it can be getting oriented at these races if you don't know.
That's still it. That is still it.
Okay, because you had a great detail about, well, everybody knows you go to that gray building over there to get race numbers. Yeah. It's always been that way. And you're like, but I'm from North America and I just got here. What? I don't know this. So that's you paint a great picture of just the challenges of being a North American rider in Europe.
And hopefully that article makes it a little bit easier for someone who wants to go try. Like, maybe they can see my mistakes and take the little tips, and hopefully it makes their trip smoother and their experience smoother. But yeah, I mean, it's a steep learning curve when you go there the first time, because again, like, they take a lot of pride and tradition in Europe, in Belgium, and that's great. And, and that's partly what creates that, the classic, like how classic it is over there, and how romantic, and how, like, there's history, and you're curious to go. Like, that's what makes it beautiful. But also, if you're not from there, it makes it really freaking hard, because you're like, which building? Like, how can I know? It's the same place it's always been. I've never been here, and it's like, oh, well, there's no... Why would we have a porta potty? Like, everybody has an RV, but I don't. So how do I, what now? And so, like, there's a lot of these little things that you get confronted with when you first go there. And I mean, it makes it hard, but at the same time, like, it does make it a beautiful cultural experience. And I think it also makes it that when you finally start to figure it out, it's a little bit sweeter, because it has not been smooth to get there.
I can totally understand that. While we're in Europe, I want to pick up on another thing that there were two things in the book that made me laugh out loud. One, I'm not going to spoil, and I'm only going to say it had to do with speeding tickets.
Oh, yeah.
And the second is your observation about the blunt honesty of the Dutch people. Some of the lines that you quoted, that, and I'm going to say the lines, but then I'm going to ask for a bit more clarity on them. But you heard these. Someone said these lines. One Dutch racer said this, maybe to you, I don't know. And the examples are: you are not good in the sand, you are racing really poorly, and you are a total nervous disaster and need to relax. Were these actually said to you, or was this said to someone else?
Yes and no. Some of them were said to me by fans. Like, I've heard so many. I've heard, like, you are very powerful, but you don't have the speed. And then like someone else comes and you're like someone completely different and tell you exactly the opposite. Like you really have the speed, but you don't have the power to follow the European girl. Like I've heard them all, and people are happy to share their opinions. And honestly, like I've spent a lot of time with the Dutch riders too, and like no one told me anything like that, but it's just like spending time with those people, you realize, you see them act together too. And a lot of the times you feel like they're screaming at each other or something like that. But truly, that's part of their culture. Like they're very transparent and very honest. I think it's a great thing. And, I spent a bit more time with Lucinda in the past couple of years.
Yeah, Lucinda Brandt.
Exactly. And a few times she would say things to me that on the first moment I was like, oh, but then she says it in such a thoughtful, like, she's really helping me, And I think spending more time with the Dutch people in their environment, it's helped me a lot. Like I realized that I'm going to grow quicker and I'm going to improve faster if I can take the feedback or the criticism. And if we bring it one step further, if someone has the courage to tell you something that's hard to say or hard to hear, like, thank you to that person, because it's not easy for them to say it either, And I think like it's not easy for a North American to say something like that. I think it's easier for the Dutch because for them, like that's just how it is. Like they're just honest. But the reason I wrote this article is just like, yeah, I mean, I think we can really learn from them, and I have, spending a little bit more time, and I'm grateful for that. Like it really is helping me grow, I think.
Have you ever delivered something that is as brutally honest? Do you ever deliver advice brutally honestly?
I suck at that. No, like I'm 100% Canadian in that way. Like I will take 1,000 detours to tell you something if I really have to say something. Like I am probably the worst. Like I think I've heard said about myself that I'm kind, but like, I'm not the person, like maybe I'm too kind, I'm just like, I'm totally not that person that will give you your truth. And sometimes I wish I was, but luckily I'm married to David, and David is pretty good at telling you the truth. So that's good. Like if someone has to tell the truth, he says it, I hide, everybody's happy. And that's kind of how it works in our family.
I'm actually glad you mentioned David, because there is a passage in the book that is an ode to the mechanic. Let's call it an ode. And I think it's also an ode to a particular mechanic, and who's also your husband, and he's so much more. Can you talk a bit about the role of David, that is David Gagnon, in your racing career?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, David is my husband, but we also work together in so many ways. So, you were asking earlier, how are you going to do it at the CX Fever Tour? Like, if you want to perform, how, with all these things happening, how am I going to perform? Is like, David, because he's there to kind of juggle and catch all the balls that are in the air. And that's what he's done my whole career. He's been there every step of the way. So he is my coach. He is the mechanic. He takes care of finance in our little business. Like he takes care of some partnerships. He takes care of all the equipment. So he's, kind of manages all of that. And all other tasks also. So they're basically like I ride the bike and, it's not true. I do a little bit more. Like I do some of the partnership stuff. I do some of the creative stuff, but really like he's there every step of the way. And the reason that I was able to build my own team over the last 6, 7, whatever, since 2008, 7 years, is because of David. And the reason why we managed to go to Europe and get good results sometimes, or like have shitty results and then come back and have good results again. Like that's a lot of it is David. Like he's, he does a lot.
Yes, it's the team element of making this happen. We see one rider on the course, but there's always so much support for that rider.
Totally, yeah.
I want to talk about one particular passage in the book. It is, don't obsess over lines, except sometimes. And what I love about that is that it illustrates the trickiness of giving advice. It's easy to give absolutes to follow, right? Like, don't pick your nose on race day. Okay, fine. I'll never pick my nose on race day. I get it. But there's this, don't obsess unless you should obsess. And there's also another one. There's have a plan, but stay flexible. But then, of course, you explain very well what you mean by these two sort of opposing forces. But were there any topics that were maybe too big or too nuanced to get into in the book? Maybe there's going to be another book about the more complicated parts of advice?
I think I would love, when I finish this book, I'm like, oh, I should have written also about that or about this or about that, And so, yes, I have a list. I'm like, we're going to have to make a second book. But to get back to the first part of your question, when you asked if I was able to be fully honest, well, one of the things, I can be honest, but hard truths, that's the difference. If I can say hard truths. One of the hard truths that David says often is if somebody comes to you with an advice and they tell you that this is the absolute, run away. Run away from that person. And I kind of agree with that. I think cyclocross, if there was one way of doing things, it would be so easy. Everybody would be a world champion. And that is, to me, the beauty of sports or of pursuing something or of racing. There's no one way to do it. And I really tried to make this clear throughout the book. This is what has worked for me. Try it or don't. But I'm not telling you this is the way. That has worked for me because I tried this, and that, and all that didn't work for me. But it doesn't mean this is the way. And so that's kind of why it was nuanced sometimes. And now you're asking me if there was another thing that I didn't enter into. I would have to think more about that. If it comes up during the interview, I will tell you.
Who are some of the Canadian riders you think people should know about or should watch out for this season?
Ooh, good question. First that comes up is Nico Knoll. She's awesome, and I think she's really good. I think she's going to keep improving. Her story is that both her parents went to the Olympics, and they both went to the Olympics as speed skaters. And her mom is Dutch. Her dad is Canadian. She is Canadian. They all live in Canada. The reason I think Nico's going to make it is her way of being and her attitude. Last year at 17, she went for 3 months in Europe on her own. She would organize this thing. Sometimes she was like, I've got everything figured out, but I don't have a place to stay for these few days. And it's like, oh, well, that's in 3 days. And and she would figure it out on her own. Or we tried to, at some point where she was in a pickle and she's like, of course we'll try to help if we can. But I was really impressed by how mature she was and how dedicated she was. And so I think seeing that, I was like, man, that girl is we better watch out for that girl. So that's the first that's come to mind. I mean, Ian Ackert, of course, what a champ. Love that guy. And I think he's going to be good. There's another kid, Emilien Belzil. I think he is national champion, a bit younger. I think he's good. I think he's going to be really good. I mean, of course, the Holmgren sisters are awesome. Who else that come to mind quickly? Oh, I don't know if he's going to race cross, actually, but under 23 national champ in the men's side, Mika Komaniuk.
Yes.
He's super strong. And I know... So David coaches him, full...
full disclosure?
Full disclosure, yes. But I know he's really improved. And so if he chooses to race cross, I think it's going to be really good. So those are the first people that come to mind right now. Oh, Raph Carrier, of course. I mean, she was already great, but I think she's becoming under 23, so she might race with us if she races some of the USCX. So that could be super cool and elevate our field as well. There's another young girl from Quebec. Her name is Lily Rose Marois. I think she was on the podium of the junior nationals. I think she's going to be good too. So honestly, I'm excited about the future of Canadian cyclocross. There's a lot of super strong riders.
For sure. I agree with that. Maghalie Rochette, I found this book inspiring. and
Thank you.
maybe want to dust off my gravel bike and take it to some cyclocross races, which I haven't done in a while. But what's inspiring you right now?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for saying what you just said. And I will say one of my goals with this book is exactly that. I hope it makes people excited to go try a cyclocross race or get back into it. So I'm happy that it left you with that feeling. So thanks for sharing that with me. What inspires me right now? Oh, I was really inspired watching the Tour de France Femmes. Like, that was really cool. I think I'm also inspired by, I'm inspired by people getting the best out of themselves, and it makes me want to get the best out of myself. I think this summer I've been training a little bit more with other people. One of the person I've been training with is Zorak Payet, who is a under 23 mountain biker in Canada. That guy inspires me. Like, he turns himself inside out. Like, when it's a race and not just a training, like, he reaches a whole other level. And like, to me, that's really cool and really inspiring to see. I'm like, like, also me, you know? and so I think, yeah, like, people that get the best out of themselves makes me want to do the same thing. So I think that's what I'm inspired by right now, like wanting to get the best out of myself.
I will add, we're almost at the end of this interview, but I will add that there is a danger within your book that readers might face. Near the end, when they finish up, they might have Whitesnake's "Here I Go Again" in their heads for hours, possibly days afterwards. And that's what happened to me, and I don't know how I feel about it exactly. I'm struggling with this.
I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I love that. Well, you know what? It's like, what a song. Like, it makes you just want to go, no?
And, I mean, I even went so far as to watch the video, the beautiful hair metal of the 80s. It's terrifying.
I love it. I love that it had that effect. So people, sorry if you have it stuck in your mind, but also not so sorry because it's a great song.
Do you listen? How often do you listen to it? Is it before a race ever?
No, I mean, actually, like, I watched The Voice and it came on. Like, I know, like, so cringe. Sorry, but it's good. The Voice also inspires me, by the way. The reason is, like, it's so cool to see people's stories, and like, it's a show about performance ultimately. Like, people go out there and perform, and it's like kind of cool to see how they perform and like what goes behind their performance. So, like, that's why I watch it. And one of the girl on the show performed that song. And I was like, what a great song that I had forgotten about. And so I put it on my Spotify liked songs, and it came more and more. And I was, every time it came on, I was like, oh yeah, like, this is it. You know, this song is like, I don't know, it gets me emotional. It makes me excited about the season, about projects, about, you know, kind of coming back after struggling the last 2-3 years. So that's why I put it in there. Like, I just think it's a great song.
Well, and it fits with the Devil Horns Rock On sign, the cyclocross fever symbol that's become the symbol.
It's rock and roll. Like, that's cyclocross. It's like, come on. You know what I'm missing, Matthew, is like, I can't play electric guitar, and that is a problem. Like, that's what I'm missing. I should be like an electric guitar player.
You know what? I think air guitar is better. It's easier to pack on a plane. It's easier to pull out at a cyclocross race. The air guitar is all you need.
You know what? I love that, and I agree. And I will say, I'm not great at air guitar, but I do air guitar, and I do it so often that sometimes if there's a solo playing in a song, David looks at me and he's like, that solo ain't gonna play itself. Like, come on.
Oh, Maghalie, this has been so much fun. Before I let you go, where can people find the book?
It's going to be on my website, which is MaghalieRochette.com. Like, pretty simple. So that's mostly where it's going to be. But for a more fun experience, come to any of the stops of the CX Fever Tour and get your own copy in live. Like, that's even better. So that's how you can get it.
Perfect. Maghalie, thank you so much. Good luck with the tour. And I can't wait to speak again.
Thank you so much. It was awesome talking to you, and thanks for taking the time to read through it all, and thanks for all your great questions. And thanks for, I told you before we started recording, but they need to know.
The people need to know.
They need to know. They need to know that you're really good at what you do. And the reason
I'm blushing.
The reason that I felt comfortable sharing the whole book with you before, like maybe a month before it came out, is because I trusted you. Like, you've been following my career for a long time, and I really felt like I could trust you and that it would just enhance the project if you could read it. And so I really appreciate that. And thank you for the work that you do. Like, it's awesome for cycling and it's awesome for us athletes. So thanks.
Oh, well, I truly appreciate that. Thank you. And actually, that was one of the things I also enjoyed in the book, was like, there were moments where I was like, oh, I was at that race too. And so it was fun for me on that level as well.
That's cool. Yeah. I love to hear it.
All right. Well,
awesome. Well, hopefully I see you at another race this fall.
Yes. It'll happen. All right. Take care, Maghalie.
All right. Hey, thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
And that's the episode. It is written and edited by me, Matthew Pioro. I had help from Jake Williams. Thank you, Jake, so much.
You're welcome. Always great to be here, and we'll be seeing you very soon in person.
Yes, we'll see you in Montreal very soon. I also want to thank Matt Hansen for all his work behind the scenes. This episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is produced by Adam Killick. He did the music, too. Also, thanks to Ontario Creates for its support. Right on, Jake. It's September, but it's crazy. We have the Quebec races. We have mountain bike world championships, and that's not even the end of the mountain bike season. Mont Saint Anne is still coming up in October, and we've got cyclocross, dare I say. Cross is here.
Exactly. And we didn't talk about the Maryland Cycling Classic that happened in the U.S. I mean, yeah, cyclocross is firmly ramping up. And, as Maghalie and you spoke about, it sounds like you'll be doing a little bit of bike racing maybe, or at least coming to a cross race. We'll see. That's the rumor.
We'll see. Like, you've heard about my injury, which, while not spectacular, it's still kind of bugging me. And I don't know if I'll be ready, but we'll see. The heart is willing. We'll see if the hand is, the thumb is.
Well, it sounds like you've been training hard on our smoothest pavement here in Toronto, Eglinton Avenue, which, if listeners are aware, you're aware. If you're a ball knower, you know it's rougher than most cross courses. So hope to see you soon.
Also, back to Maghalie Rochette's CX Fever Tour. She is going to be appearing in Toronto, just around the corner from you and I, at Velocolor. Our friends at Velocolor are hosting her at that location, and I plan to be there. And that should be good times. And everybody, listeners, check out the Cyclocross Fever schedule on Maghalie Rochette's website.
You can buy the book there, it sounds like. And also, there, is going to be some good times. There's going to be, I think it's Tuesday, September 16th. And then there's a cyclocross clinic on Wednesday, September 17th. So come on out.
That's in the Toronto area. Also, check out our website. It's super active. Check out our social medias. Sign up for our newsletter. You get exclusive previews of our fantastic content, like I mentioned earlier, Jake's feature profile of Michael Leonard. It's the place to be. Sign up for that newsletter, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Ride safely, especially through construction areas. They can be particularly hazardous. They can have really slick surfaces that are not usually there. Ride safely, and we'll talk to you later.